Good morning and welcome to this Cabinet meeting on Wednesday, the 14th of October. I'm going to start with apologies for absence. I have one apology for absence this morning, which is Vernon Smith, which is duly noted. There are no other apologies for absence. Agenda item 2 is minutes of our previous meeting on the 22nd of July. Is everyone happy for them to be noted as a true record? I'm seeing the hands up and thumbs up there, so thank you all very much. Agenda item number 3 is declarations of interest. Members are reminded to declare any interest or relating to specific matters on the agenda. Are there any interests to declare? No. Moving on to agenda item number 4, which is questions at Cabinet. Public questions, we have received none within the deadline. So we now move on to members' questions, of which there are 11 under 3 separate names, luckily all in nice convenient blocks. So there is 30 minutes for this item, though. Given we've got 11, I think we should be fairly fine. So the first block of questions are in the name of Councillor Paul Hodgkinson. And Paul, I would ask you to indicate which questions you would like to ask a supplementary on. Paul.
Thank you. Good morning. Yeah, I'd like to ask supplementaries on all of those 6, please, to Nigel. So first question, morning, Nigel.
Morning, Paul.
Thank you for your various answers. So specifically on question 1, thank you for the reply. However, in your answer, you haven't explained why just last year you dismissed our suggestion of planting 6 million trees when that was brought before the County Council just last year. And at the time, you claimed that planting just 1 million was, to quote you, a very challenging target. So why have you, therefore, since then, backed a figure which is 6 times our original suggestion, which at the time you said was very challenging?
Thank you, Paul. At that time, I was concerned about the financial implications for this council, and I don't apologise for that. But Paul, since then, we've done a great deal of work on this with officers, and what we now have is a very broad partnership across the whole of the county, and that gives me the confidence that we can approach this in this ambitious way. The other thing I need to emphasise, because I think there's a bit of misunderstanding about what's being envisaged here, is that we are talking about a comprehensive approach of not only additional tree planting, but also woodland regeneration. When you realise that some more than 40% of our woodland is not managed, you can see the potential we've got to increase woodland cover by better managing our existing woodland. So, Paul, I think we have to look at this in a comprehensive way. We've been banding figures around in terms of the number of trees to be planted, but it is much more comprehensive than that.
Okay, yeah, no, I mean, I do understand that. I'm just trying to get to the practicalities of this, really. So, actually, in question 2, you've referred to previous council motions in your answer. And I suppose what I'm really asking you here is, did it not occur to you at the time when our motion and the opposition motion was put forward last year around this, to at that time work with local partners? You've talked about working with local partners now, but that previous motion was over a year ago. So did it not occur to you at the time that was the time to do it, to speed the whole thing up?
We did, and we have been, Paul. We've been working on this really right through the whole of the COVID pandemic. And I think when you look at the scale of the report that I'm presenting this morning together with the Gloucestershire Tree Survey, the Gloucestershire Tree Survey has only just been concluded, Paul. In fact, it's going for adoption later this month. So we're bringing this at the very right time when that tree strategy is complete.
Okay, so in question 3, having read your answer, I understand the point you made about woodland regeneration, But in terms of actual figures here, it's still very unclear to me whether you are indeed confirming that you're still committing to the 1 million trees target you set last year. So can you just confirm on the record today, please, that this council will plant 1 million trees, and whether that will contribute to the overall 35 million tree target, or is it independent of that?
No, it's part of that overall target, because what we're part of now is the movement towards increasing woodland cover across this county to that very ambitious 20%.
Right. Okay. So that's clear. So given that that's still the 1 million trees are still there as a target, 11 months after setting that target, can you tell us today, please, how many trees have actually been planted since then?
I can come back and give you that figure, but you realise obviously we've been in great difficulties this year by virtue of COVID. So that figure really does not give an indication of the kind of trajectory I hope we'll have over the next 10 years.
Okay, so you don't have any figure today that you can give me?
I can get a figure to you, but I don't have a figure in front of me now. And as I explained, it's been a very difficult 6 months for all of us. So I'm not sure how relevant that figure will be, because the trajectory we're looking at is over the next 10 years.
Okay, well, I mean, question 5, obviously this is about seeing whether there's been any delivery of things. So in question 5, in terms of your answer there, obviously I just need to be clear that I'm delighted that the partnership you're working with is pursuing such an ambitious target. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of practicalities here. So given that you have publicly obviously celebrated this 35 million tree target, you must believe it's deliverable and therefore also economically viable. So can you therefore provide the early estimates of the total cost across Gloucestershire of delivering these 35 million trees? Not the plan of how to attract that money, but what the actual cost is going to be in global terms. After all, without figures to back this up, people could say it's pie in the sky.
We're working with partners, Paul. Now that the strategy has been adopted, we were working with partners to do that. And obviously, I will be bringing the results of those deliberations to Council and Cabinet subsequently.
All right, final question from me then, question 6. You've talked about the tree planting season being around 6 months long, and obviously as someone who's planted trees myself, I know that, but I also know that now is the time to plant them when the ground is warm, so October, November, before it gets really cold. So given that fact and this huge target, 35 million trees, actually, that works out at, if there's a 6-month growing season, it works out at 20,000 new trees a day coming from somewhere just in Gloucestershire every day. So can you tell me, therefore, where you envisage those 20,000 trees a day to come from, and how will GCC ensure that that is actually realistic? When you hear the figure, it is mind-blowing.
Well, Paul, if you look at the strategy, you'll see that in figures 1 and 2 give a broad indication, strategic indication of where additional planting is going to take place. What I can tell you is that Forestry England are very well advanced with their 2 major planting areas that are indicated in the strategy.
Thank you, Paul, for that. That's Paul's 6 questions and supplementaries. We've now got 2 questions in the name of Bernie Fisher. So I invite Bernie to ask his supplementaries.
Right, thank you for your answers. Question 7, obviously real-time transformation is critical. Sorry, real-time information is critical to encourage more people onto the buses and into public transport in general. The frequency of public transport, can the Cabinet member confirm what impact the COVID-19 pandemic has had on the frequency of buses and trains, and what measures GCC is taking to encourage people back into public transport and onto transport and out of their cars?
Thank you for your question, Bernie. Clearly, the impact of COVID-19, we all know, has had a devastating impact on public transport. government has basically been discouraging the use of public transport. But we have, in fact, continued and have increased our support, our financial support, for not only for community transport, but also for those commercial services that until this year didn't require any subsidy. So we've continued to do that. Clearly, the scheduling of those services is reduced, but at the same time, we are ensuring that there is an overall service framework still existing.
Benny, to be fair, that's not a question on the item in front of us this morning, but I gave you a little bit of leeway, and I think Nigel was very generous in providing you with an answer. But supplementaries need to be based on the paper. I think you have been advised.
I don't agree, because I think it is relevant. But question 8, can the Cabinet member please be more specific as an example in order to get to net zero by 2038? The West Yorkshire Combined Authority plan to increase bus usage by 39% and rail by 53%. Can the Cabinet please confirm the understanding targets and how we are doing? We need to know how we are doing, and what is he doing to ensure that we bounce back quickly from the pandemic?
Well, the target is to increase bus patronage, and I have got some figures for you, because we have had the local transport plan progress report, and this, of course, is pre-COVID. But the latest figure for Q4 last year, 2019, shows more than 4.3 million journeys per year, and that was an increase on the 2016 figure for the same quarter, where we had just on 4.3 million journeys. And when you compare that situation in Gloucestershire with the rest of the country, where bus patronage is declining, I think we are making a good fist of increasing bus patronage in a very difficult environment.
Thank you, Nigel. Thank you, Bernie, for that. The final 3 questions. Bernie, can you put yourself on mute, please? Thank you. Final 3 questions are in the name of Councillor Jeremy Hilton.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning to everybody. These questions are specific about our highway tree network. From what I understand, the council employs 1 tree officer for the city of Gloucester. And that person also looks after the Forest of Dean and Stroud districts. There is another one for the rest of the county, as I understand there might be an assistant. That's not many personnel for 30,000 trees to keep an eye on them and to check them and to make sure that they're safe. Could you confirm how many GCC personnel are responsible for maintaining the existing network of highway trees? That's 30,000 minimum.
Well, the answer is that we have put half £500,000 into our ash dieback programme, and that in fact is taking place at the moment in my own division. There's extensive work on the ash dieback in the highways, both in terms of felling those trees and also replanting. So I think this council is making a big commitment towards dealing with highway trees across the piece, but of course dealing with the ash dieback is the most important at the moment.
Okay, it'd be nice to actually have the actual staffing profile if you could provide that in writing.
I will discuss that with us.
Yeah, question 10. Of the 80 trees felled last year, how many had the stumps ground out? I ask, as in my division, there are a number of stumps that need grinding out and new trees planted, and it's not being done. I understand it's a difficult job and we need to use specialist contractors, but could you tell me what we're doing about grinding out those stumps that are left after the tree is felled and planting new trees?
Well, Councillor Hilton, I'm surprised you haven't taken this up with your local highways manager. I mean, that's something that surely you could do.
Well, I have done.
And what answer have you had?
Yeah, and the point is we need specialist contractors, and it's not being done. Question 11. Of the 200 trees planted, what maintenance programme is put in place to make sure they thrive? I ask because there's 2 dead saplings and 1 stunted sapling outside the home of the leader of this council that have not been replaced or dealt with by the tree maintenance team. So tell me, what are we doing about it? There's no good planting young trees if we don't keep an eye on them, make sure that they do grow. and strengthen.
I accept that fully. If you would like to email me with that, I'm sure I'll follow it up for you.
You know, I'm asking about globally. I'm just giving you an example locally.
Well, clearly maintenance is part of our responsibility. I don't think there's any doubting that.
Thank you, Jeremy, for that one. That is the end of members' questions. So we're now moving on to the agenda in front of us this morning. Bear with me as I switch screens. So the first of those items is item 5, traffic enforcement camera contract, which is Cabinet Member Public Protection, Parking and Libraries, Dave Norman, and I ask him to present that to Cabinet.
Thank you, Leader, and good morning to everybody. This report seeks Cabinet's approval for the procurement of 2 contracts in relation to traffic enforcement cameras and their maintenance, which are used for enforcing bus lanes, cycle lanes, moving traffic and parking contraventions. Contract 1 relates to a new contract to provide future traffic management hardware and software requirements and shall run for a period of 5 years with a 3-year extension option. Contract 2 relates to a direct award with the existing traffic management system provider to maintain the existing hardware and software and shall last no longer than 5 years. The value of the arrangement shall not exceed 1.03 million over the life of the contracts, and provision has been built into the decision to expand enforcement to include mobile enforcement vehicles, moving traffic contraventions and cycle lanes in line with recent government announcements. Any expansion of camera enforcement activities would be subject to an options appraisal, communication strategy, and a medium-term financial strategy capital funding bid at the appropriate time. The planned dates of the contract awarding process are clearly laid out in the paper, leading to the tender award being next March, with the new contract following a month later, that is April 21. Detail is provided within the main report contents, with the options possible outlined on pages 26 to 28. Cabinet colleagues will note that there are 4 options. I draw your attention to section 2.3, which outlines the benefits of the preferred option and the basis for the officer decision. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you for that, Dave. Does anyone have any questions for Dave on this one? I'm not seeing anyone waving frantically at the screen, nor am I seeing any hands up in the main participants list. The recommendations are on page 23. There are 4 in total. All those in favour, please show. That is duly carried. Thank you. Moving on to the next agenda item, which is the financial monitoring report, which runs from page 33 to 44, and I invite the Cabinet Member for Finance and Change, Lyndon Stowe, to present that to Cabinet.
Good morning everyone. The forecast revenue position for the years to date, so that's as at the end of August, is an overspend of just under £10 million at 9.948 million. Now, the details of that breakdown are on page 39 of the online file, or page 35, page numbered up, which show where those underspends, overspends are occurring. Now, the biggest overspend is within children's services, and that is currently somewhere about £9.4 million. That is our prediction. Now, some of that is offset by an underspend in technical and county-wide. Now, when we look at this 9.948 million overspend, we need to reflect that about 3.4 million of that relates to COVID. Of that 3.4 million, at this point in time, we are reasonably confident of getting that money back from government through their income reimbursement scheme. So if we take that out, our net position, therefore, at this moment in time, is an overspend forecast of £6.5 million. If we look at our capital forecast year-end position, that is somewhere about a 6.58 million overspend. Now, that I think is quite good news, because that predominantly is us bringing forward highway schemes. I'm sure we all recognise the benefits of that. Happy to take any further questions, Chairman.
Thank you for that, Lyndon. Anyone got any questions or comments on that one? Can I just add, I think this is an opportune moment to give our thanks to Lyndon and to Steve Mawson and the team for the very difficult job that they've had to do during what has been a very challenging time financially. I think it's fair to reflect that there are a number of councils up and down the country who have not been able to cope financially as well as we have, though there are still some challenges, as Lyndon has outlined in his statement this morning. I think it's also fair to reflect that the response from government overall to the sector has been positive, and indeed we saw another announcement at the weekend of an extra £1 billion, and we're waiting for details on that. With regards to what that will mean for Gloucestershire. So I just wanted to put my thanks on record for Lyndon and the team for all the work they've done, because there are a lot of council leaders out there who probably don't feel as confident as I'm feeling at the moment, and I'm sure all members are feeling that while this is extremely difficult, tight, we seem to be on top of it overall. Anyone got any questions? Lyndon, do you got anything to add, summing up before we go to the recommendation?
No, thank you for those kind words, Leader, and I'm sure that Mr. Mawson will make sure they're passed through to the whole team here at the County Council. Other than just to make the recommendations then that are on page 33 or page 37 of our electronic version, and there are 4 recommendations there in total. Thank you. Brilliant,
thank you. I'm happy to take those on block. All those in favour, please show. That is duly carried. Thank you very, very much. I'm just going back to the agenda. Bear with me. Note to Simon, it would be quite useful if the agenda was indexed in the PDF version going forward, because it's a bit difficult to navigate. The next item is item 7, which is a cabinet response to the council motion 848, tree planting. Now, as this is a response to a council motion, it is traditional that we invite the original proposers as seconder of the motion to say a few brief words before the cabinet member responds, outlining the report, which there'll be a number of questions on this morning. And my understanding is the proposer of the motion is on the line, Leslie Williams. I don't think we've got the seconder here this morning. So Leslie, I invite you to make any observations or comments you wish on what is being presented.
Thank you very much, Mark, and good morning, everybody. And thank you very much for all the work that's gone into this. One of the key recommendations, if somebody wants to be a councillor, is be patient, because this motion came and went to council in November, and now we've got a response, and I'm very grateful for it, and I'm pleased to see all the background papers that have gone with it. I think the recommendations are fine. I think it is a very challenging programme, and I got 2 recommendations for you to consider, if you would be so kind. First of all, do you think it would be possible to include in new road builds a house planting programme? Nothing is kinder to new estates than to have trees. They soften the areas so much, and at a time when you haven't got the conflict of wondering where all the services are underground, planting trees at that time would be a comparatively easy process. So I wondered if that could be considered. It's interesting how trees have become so important to people during lockdown. When they were going out for a walk, the particular newspaper I read would have pictures up of trees that people had become really attached to and watched them develop as the year went on. So trees are important to people. But my other recommendation is if it could be considered, we've always wanted to offer apprenticeships to the young people who we are aware of who are in care within the county, and I wondered if this is an opportunity to think, because I mean it's a lot of trees to plant, and it's going to need a lot of power to get it done in people. Is this an opportunity to train some arborists, to use our young people to train as arborists? It's a skill that's always needed. I just thought I would add that to the group you've already got. So thank you very much, and I'm really delighted to see this going on and happening, and the sooner the better. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leslie. I'm not sure whether you're proposing 2 additional amendments or I think some suggestions on how this can be incorporated going forward, and I'm sure that's what Nigel will do in the spirit of his response. Nigel, the paper's in your name, and invite you to pick up the comments that Leslie made and also present it to Cabinet. Well,
Leslie, that's very generous of you. I do very much welcome your suggestions. Just to share a little story with you, because on Saturday, my wife and I went to get our flu jabs to Morton Hospital. Morton Hospital was built about 10 years ago now. It still looks very new. There's the hospital and the medical centre, and between the hospital and the medical centre is quite an extensive car park. That now, Leslie, looks like a forest. It's wonderful. The landscape scheme planted scores and scores of trees. And I mean, I call it Morton Forest now, because when I go to pick up my prescription, it's just a wonderful experience to walk around there. And that's what we've got to do. We've got to be much more ambitious with new development to increase the tree planting, as you suggest. So I really am very happy to take up your suggestion and work with officers. We need to look at this seriously, because with the scale of new development we're going to experience in Gloucestershire over the next 10 years, we must, as we've done in Morton, anyone who ever is in the vicinity of Morton, go and have a look, because it just shows what an impact additional planting can make to a new scheme. Your apprenticeship is a really good suggestion, which I'm more than happy to pick up and take to members and officers. So, Leader, I'll go now, if I may, give the formal response to that motion 848. Cabinet made clear our commitment to respond to the climate emergency in the strategy adopted in December 2019. And this includes significant levels of tree planting and the development of a Gloucestershire carbon offsetting scheme. Now, Leslie, to meet the requirements of the motion would require an additional 3,300 hectares of land, equivalent to almost a third of the size of the Forest of Dean. There's more land than the council owns, which is farmed by about 80 separate farm tenants, and so it's not available for large-scale tree planting. We worked with Forestry England because they estimated that for Cabinet to unilaterally, because that was in a sense the option we were being asked to consider, to implement that motion, we would require over 118 million for the land, tree planting and maintenance to 2030. It's clear that we cannot deliver the requirements of the motion on our own, nor the best place to do so. So, echoing my response to Paul, we did in fact earlier this year start to work with Gloucestershire Local Nature Partnership with regard to their tree strategy, which, as I say, has only recently been adopted. And that's essentially to increase woodland cover across the county from what is now 13.4% to 20%, which will make us one of the leaders across the whole country, because government is asking local authorities to increase their woodland cover to 19%. The point I really want to make, as I've already made, is that this is both about tree planting, but also managing existing woodland. And any of us who've walked through woodland during our countryside walks will often notice just how poor a lot of the maintenance is. In fact, 40%, more than 40% of woodland isn't managed at all. So clearly, there's a great deal of scope to improve that. And that's really where the recommendations come in this report, which are that Cabinet endorses the approach outlined in the report, in particular that officers continue to work with the Gloucestershire Local Nature Partnership and constituent partners, firstly to engage landowners quickly and develop the action plan for delivering the Gloucestershire Tree Strategy and vision therein. Secondly, to develop a Gloucestershire Natural Capital Investment Trust and associated carbon offsetting scheme. Thirdly, to develop the community tree planting scheme, which is part of our million tree challenge. And fourthly, develop funding bids for the Climate Change and Air Quality Action Fund. I do commend the tree strategy to you. It's included as an appendix to this report, and to confirm that our partners, Gloucestershire Local Nature Partnership, the Forestry England, Gloucestershire Wildlife Trust and Woodland Trust welcome and support this approach. And the tree strategy, as I say, is included as an appendix. So those, Leader, are the recommendations that I'm seeking support for from Cabinet, set out in the paper, and look for your support.
Thank you, Nigel, for that. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Nigel? Tim?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. No, I'd just like to say I think this report is terrific, and I think that great credit goes to Councillor Nigel Moore and the team of officers of putting it together. I think we were all, agree with the need to plant more trees for so many reasons. But I think what this does is it puts it into a structured way and sets out how we can work with our partners, given that we're not able to control every piece of land in the county. But I think it's an excellent report, and I'm very happy to support it today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Is there anyone else with any questions or comments? If not, I'll echo what Tim says and thank Nigel and the team for all the work they've done on this. It's ambitious and it's partner-led, and I think that's the two key components that really do matter on this agenda. So I know that Leslie has also thanked you in the comments for taking up some of the suggestions that she put forward. If there's nothing else and no other members who wish to contribute, the recommendations are set out on page 46. There are 4 bullet points there. I'll take the entire paragraph on block. All those in favour, please show. That is duly carried. The next item on our agenda is the real-time passenger information system, to which there have been a number of questions this morning. And again, I invite Nigel to present that to Cabinet.
Thank you, Leader. Gloucestershire has had a bus real-time system since 2004. It was upgraded and expanded in 2015. The existing contract with Trapeze Group UK comes to an end in July next year, and we wish to go live with a new contract by then, and therefore I'm seeking authorisation from Cabinet to procure and award an RTPI contract through our standard procurement methods. This would be for an initial 5-year term with a possible 2-year extension, and on this basis the total contract value would be 700,000. Just a few words about RTPI technology. It allows the public to be informed about their services via bus stop displays, the Travel Line website, and various third-party apps. This is vital to helping to grow public confidence in our bus services, which in turn encourages increased use. Real-time information on delays or early running are a key part of checking operator compliance on our bus service contracts, which can assist with complaints, improving the service, and supporting traffic commissioner investigations. The reporting from the RTPI system is vital to our integrated transport unit. It's been successfully used for some years by almost all councils in the UK and is now expected by the travelling public as a standard method of information. Communicating bus timetables and other information to the public is a statutory obligation for GCC. Having an RTPI system, however, is a discretionary option, but it is an important part of our information delivery, and it's in line with our local transport plan and our climate change strategy. This decision doesn't commit GCC to any hardware purchases. It's simply for the data side of the system, calculating bus arrival times and tracking vehicles. Hardware can be added to the network whenever GCC has the funding and decides it's appropriate. The service will include license for the needed software, including a content management system and the installation services. Leader, there's also a decision whether to have a public transport smartphone app as an integral part of the new system. The point I would make is that websites exist that show exactly the same information as an app and which can provide a matching or better service than an app. And on this basis, my recommendation is that we do not have an app or a web-based solution as part of the new contract. This functionality already exists, and the budget therefore does not need to be expanded to include an app on that basis. And it's on that basis that I seek your support to the recommendation which is set out in the report and which I've outlined in terms of timescale and contract value. Thank you, Leader.
Brilliant. Thank you, Nigel, for that. Any comments or questions? I mean, one comment question from me, which I know we've had a conversation about already, and I think officers and yourself have highlighted already the app issue and the fact that there are a myriad of websites that provide much accurate data. Is there a guarantee and assurance that we as GCC will help signpost these to customers so they can easily understand which ones to access and where to get that from?
Leader, thank you. That's a very good point, and I will obviously take that back and discuss that with our team. Thank you.
Good. Okay. Anyone else got any questions or comments on this one? No. If that's the case, the recommendation is on page 83, which asks for delegated authority to the Executive Director of Economy, Environment and Infrastructure in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Environment and Public and Planning. I'll take that as the key recommendation. All those in favour, please show. That is duly carried. Thank you for that. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is item 9, adoption and implementation of a county-wide housing with care strategy, which runs from page 105 to 246. This is the Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care Commissioning, and I invite Carol to present that report.
Thank you, Leader. I'm very pleased to be able to present this report, this strategy to Cabinet. I'm seeking approval to adopt and implement a county-wide housing and care strategy for Gloucestershire. This will fulfil one of our requirements under the Care Act 2014, which is the suitability of accommodation in meeting the home care and support needs of older and vulnerable people. The strategy has been developed in collaboration with district councils to provide people with a good standard of housing complemented by high quality care, improve services for people with a range of support needs, including complex needs and lifelong conditions, increase availability across the county so that each district has housing needs which meets the needs of older people who are local, increase the choice of supported living for younger adults with disabilities and mental health conditions, maximise the opportunities that new technologies can offer to support people in their own homes, provide a wide, viable, attractive and cost-effective alternative to residential care, which benefits the wider housing market through regeneration and by releasing larger properties, deliver cost savings to housing, health and care systems while providing wider community facilities to connect and benefit local people. The strategy is underpinned by 6 district plans that provide a detailed place-based analysis of the requirements of the housing with care for older people up to 2041 and people with a disability or mental health need up to 2035. So this wide-ranging strategy is a significant development, has got buy-in from all the partners, and we're looking forward to actually improving accommodation for people who need to live in housing locally who need care. So I ask the Cabinet to support the recommendation on my papers 106, which is to adopt and implement the Gloucestershire Housing and Care Strategy as set out in the paper. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Carol, for that. Does anyone have any comments or questions on that one? Kathy, I'm not sure that's your hand. I think it is. Kathy.
Just really to support it, Leader. I mean, this is a long overdue piece of work that needs to be done, and we are more in trying to keep people at home, people with disabilities and older people staying in homes and not feeling that they have to move out. So it's very important at early stages that homes are made with building contractors to be suitable. I went recently to look at some new homes being built near where I live in Long Levens, and I was quite impressed about the actual access into the houses and the width of the doors, and already some sort of messages are getting through. So anything we can do to help people stay in their own homes and plan for the future, the better.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kathy, for that, and I certainly echo those comments. So unless there are any other comments that Cabinet members wish to make, the recommendation is as is highlighted by Carol on page 106 in the PDF version, which is to adopt and implement the Gloucestershire Housing with Care Strategy as set out in Appendix 1. All those in favour, please show. That is duly carried. The next item on the agenda is the extension of the adult drug and alcohol treatment services contract, which runs from page 247 to 255, and that's the Cabinet Member for Public Health and Communities, and I invite Tim to present that to Cabinet.
Thank you, Leader, and good morning again, everybody. Yes, this report is asking Cabinet to extend the existing contract with Change Grow Live, CGL, until the end of March in 2024. We have within the current option a trigger point, which we're reaching for the remaining 2 years of the contract, and you will see in the report that it sets out the three options that we looked at as to what we should do and how we should consult. I won't run through all of them, they're quite clearly set out. But having evaluated those and looked at the performance of the current provider, we think the clear thing is to continue the existing contract. I think really that's to give us stability and consistency. Clearly, I'd also say that the performance of the existing contractor has improved considerably. Certainly the performance figures, if you look at it again pre-pandemic, it improved throughout the period that they had the contract and significantly better outturn than their predecessor. Certainly the contract we've got over the years has been adjusted. We've added additional funds for additional costs of opiates, etc. We think the performance levels are good. I personally have now visited all the main outlets of CGL and actually seen them in action. It's very impressive. Like all of us, they faced particular challenges during the pandemic and had to change the way they work, and I think they've done a pretty good job. So I think it's quite clear. I would say that the recommendation is by far and away the most sensible way to proceed, and I will commend it to Cabinet this morning.
Thank you for that, Tim. Does anyone have any questions for Tim on that? Carol.
Thank you, Leader. It's just really a comment that this recommendation allows stability and continuity for service with a group of people who are the most vulnerable and the most challenging that we have in Gloucestershire. So I fully support Tim's paper. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol, for that. Anyone else got any comments or questions on that one? Otherwise, the recommendation is set out on page 247 in my version, which, as Tim has outlined, is to grant a +2 year extension to the contract with Change Grow Live for adult drug and adult treatment services from the 1st of April 2022 to the 31st of March 2024. All those in favour, please show. It's duly carried. Right. Okay. So we now go on to the last item on the agenda. bear with me a second, which is the schedule of proposed disposals, which are listed out are pages 255 to 266. Members are reminded that the annex contains exempt information, and if any Cabinet member wishes to talk about the exempt information, then we will have to pass the appropriate regulation as set out on your agenda. However, as that probably involves switching off the YouTube channel, which we're having problems with, I'm hoping that no one's going to recommend we do that, but that is an option open. But I'm going to invite the Cabinet Member for Finance and Change to make any comments he wishes on the public part of the document. Lyndon.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, really, we're just asking Cabinet to approve the two schedules. We see these quite often. Appendix A, which, as you mentioned, is exempt. We just require confirmation that those sites which have not yet been disposed of remain surplus. And Appendix B, which are additions to our schedule of disposal. So they've been recommended by our property board as being surplus to requirements. I think the important thing always to remember on this is that we, as a county council, we do need to deliver capital receipts. This is a major part of our capital receipts programme. And although we're a little bit of slippage probably around completions due to COVID, I think if we look at the expectations in the timeline beyond 2021, there are some good indicators, and we're having some really positive dialogues with developers and indeed the other districts around some of our sites. So I think it's a relatively good news story. But as you said, I'm happy to answer any questions, take any comments on the general thrust of this. The report also includes details of those sales made in recent months and subject to confidentiality. But anything that's in the public domain is very much in the public domain, and this really report is an update on that. So I'm just happy to propose the recommendations, Chairman, and to take comments from any members offline if you don't want to talk about any of the proposed disposals under exempt session. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Anyone got any questions or comments? No, I'm not seeing any hands up on that one. So the recommendations are outlined on my papers, at least on pages 255. And there are two in total on that one. All those in favour, please show. That is duly carried. That is the last item on the agenda. So thank you all very much for joining us this morning. And I now declare the meeting closed.